Hello and welcome to the Sales for the Nigerian Business Person podcast. It's available on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple iTunes, or any podcast player of your choice. So remember to subscribe for free once you're done listening to this episode. That's for those of you who listen to it on the web browser. And please give me a 5-star review when you're done, because so far all your peers have given me 5-star reviews across all the different platforms that I have checked. Now, before we move on to today's topic, apologies. I'm not recording in my regular space. In fact, I'm in the living room, and it's one of those late night recordings. So let's expect to have some interruptions in case the kids run out or wifey comes out to get something. So there'll be some of that background noise. I wasn't able to get the recording done earlier in the day because something really wonderful happened. The national grid collapsed, as it happens every now and then. That's the power grid. Then, what else? Oh, yes, then my mobile carrier, Nine Mobile, their services seemed to collapse as well, so I couldn't do any work today. And I figured there was no point in making the podcast recording if I couldn't upload the episode immediately. I try not to record these things ahead because I've recorded ahead in the past and I've accidentally deleted the episode. So I just wait, record immediately, and then upload immediately. So that's the reason why this is a very late night recording and why there might be some interruptions. One plus, if you hear any squeaking, that's just the living room chairs, in case I'm moving around and stuff like that. So, with the apologies out of the way, today on the show, we're going to look at how to deal with buyer's remorse and buyer's regret. Now, some of you might be wondering, why this topic today? And that's because on an older podcast episode, I think that was just 2 episodes ago, we looked at what I call the big 3 and why those are important to preventing business problems. And one of the business problems that I introduced on that particular episode was the problem of buyer's remorse or buyer's regret. Now, some of you think that both of those terms mean the same thing, and I used to think they meant the same thing before I started off my career in sales and business consulting. And now I have in fact discovered that those are actually 2 different situations. I can't remember which is which, but I remember the distinction clearly. One of them is where the buyer, your potential customer, your client, your whoever, has bought something from you, your product or your service, and they are mad at you. They're angry at you because they think you influenced them to buy a bad product, a poor product, a defective product, or they made an unnecessary purchase. That is one. They're angry at you. The other situation is where they're mad or they're angry at themselves because they think that they didn't properly consider all the important criteria, factors, whatever it is that they should have before making a choice. And now they have bought something that is bad, that is poor, that is defective, that is unnecessary or unfit for the problem that they are trying to solve. So buyer's remorse, buyer's regret, people use them interchangeably, but they're not the same. One situation, the buyer is angry at you, Mr. Business Owner or Mr. Salesperson. The other situation, they're angry at themselves because they don't think they did a very good job. Now, what does that have to do with you? Because after all, if they're mad at themselves, then how is that your business? It's your business because if they're mad at themselves that they didn't make the right choice, chances are that when the time comes for repeat business or referrals or whatever, they are not going to think of you. So either way, we have to deal with the negative emotions, negative ramifications, negative whatever it is that we want to call it whenever people do business with us. So excuse me. And so that's the reason why buyer's remorse, buyer's regret is something that we have to tackle. So in the older episode, that's where I laid the introduction about the litany of woes that can happen when we do not pay attention to what the big 3 are. Oh, I think I should skip back for those of you who are listening for the first time. Summary of the big 3. I would prefer that after you listen to this episode, you go and you listen back to that. Just skip 2 episodes back. If you skip 1 episode back, that is the episode where I was advising Remy Lekun and all the other people who are trying to move into careers of sales and business development, and then you skip after that, and then that's where you see the one about the big 3. So Summary for those of you who are catching this podcast for the first time. The big three are prospecting, qualification, and discovery. Big terms, technical terms, yes, but they're absolutely necessary. They are the foundation for any successful sales process. Because if you don't do prospecting, qualification, and discovery, there's no point in doing the much more sexier parts, which is negotiation, pricing, handling objections, what else? And then all the other things that people like to do, packaging, branding, blah, 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 blah. All of that is unnecessary if you do not, one, do prospecting, which is you make sure that you're talking to the right person. Number two, qualification, to make sure that not just the right person, but that there's the right problem that you're solving. And then number three, discovery, to make sure that the person has a severe enough problem to spend money on. Now, this is where buyer's remorse or buyer's regret, this is how it happens in a nutshell, although we're going to go into much more detail in the next episode. If you're not talking to the right person, then chances are the person might end up with buyer's remorse or buyer's regret, because if they're not the right person, they might not have the right need specs, and of course they might end up with a bad purchase. So those are situations where I, for instance, show up to the shop because I'm supposed to buy something for, let's say, my darling wife. Maybe I want to surprise her, or she asked me to buy something. But because you don't go through the whole trouble of trying to figure out why I'm there, why I'm buying something. Oh yeah, let me make this practical. Back in university, we have this some family friends, real tight friends back in Lagos, the Okodwa family. Really good to my mom, especially when we moved to Lagos and we didn't have many friends. For those of you who've been listening from day one, you know the whole story about how Momsi showed up in Lagos, 5 kids, and members of the church were really welcoming to her. The Okodwa family is one of those families who was really welcoming to us. So, I'm in university, I'm heading home, and I figure Miss Okodwa has been real nice to the family. Let me buy her something so that just to say thank you. And there was this dude who used to sell beads, traditional beads. Yokod was there, Ishan. That's Benin, Nigeria. So I figured, let me buy some beads for her. I walk up to the fellow, see a couple of beads, we price, I buy, I take them home, and I hand them over to Miss Okodwa. Really proud that I bought some traditional coral beads for her and that she's going to be really happy. And she looks at it and she smiles and she's like, oh, my son, thank you very much, I appreciate it, and blah, blah, blah. But unfortunately, I had bought the wrong kind of beads. Now, I bought the beads that I thought looked the nicest. They were real nice, real sharp, no impurities at all. But it turns out that the ones with the impurities are the right ones to buy if you're trying to impress an Ishan traditional woman, because those are the authentic beads. The ones without stains, the modern ones, are artificial, and so they are not they're not the best at all. I wanted to buy the best, and I bought what didn't have impurities. But well, anyway, just so you know, if you're going to marry an Ishan woman and you want to impress her mom and impress her father, and you go to go and buy beads, make sure you have a very frank conversation with the person who is selling those beads, so that you buy the right kind of coral beads. There's no point in showing up with the wrong beads. You'll be feeling like you're a correct guy, like you've done something to impress your in-laws, and meanwhile you bought the wrong stuff. You bought substandard stuff. So that's what happened. Now, she was understanding because I'm Tiv, I'm not Ishan. I know nothing about coral beads. There's no way I could have known the person swindled me. That sort of stuff. She even wore it on 1 or 2 occasions, so I appreciate it. But at that situation, there was definitely buyer's remorse and buyer's regret. Some of it was me being mad at myself because I bought the wrong thing, and some of it was being mad at the other person because that guy should have advised me. But then again, it's not like I told him all the reasons why I wanted to buy it in the first place. And I'm sure you can see how prospecting, qualification, and discovery are really, really important. If the fellow had said, young man, what's up? How you doing? Why are you here? Are you buying it for you? Are you buying it for wifey? Are you buying it for your in-laws? Is it a gift? Is it the kind of questions that you should ask if you want to deliver a cool job? He would have gotten all the background information that he needed, and he would have recommended the right items for me to buy, even though they would have been much more expensive. even if he hadn't done that, he would have been able to clear up my misconceptions about beads, because I was assuming that beads without impurities are the right kind of beads to buy. That's the modern mindset. As per when you want to buy diamonds, you're looking for the diamonds that don't have impurities and those sorts of things. So he would have been able to set me straight that, oh, young man, actually, it doesn't work that way. The newer beads without impurities, those are the lower quality ones. If you really want to impress this your momsy's friend, you should be looking at these sorts of beads, the ones that have the impurities and have the imperfections in them. So there was buyer's remorse, there was buyer's regret, whichever way you want to look at it. And that was because this fellow did not engage in prospecting, qualification, and discovery. And because of that, when I ended up wanting to get married years later, funny enough, I ended up marrying an Isha woman, not from the Okodwa family anyway. But when that time came along and the time came to buy beads, I did not mention that, hey, Popsy, I actually know this person, this is where he is, and he has correct beads. Let's go and do business with him. So you see how this is not a theoretical thing, and this happens live. It happens all the time. So we should be doing prospecting, qualification, and discovery. Are we talking to the right person? Does the right person have a problem that we can solve? Who is the end user? Is this a problem that is worth spending money on? Those sorts of things. Because even though eventually we would have gotten to the point of young man, well, I say young man because the fellow was much older than me. Even though we would have gotten to the point of, hey, young man, don't look at these modern ones. Look at these ones that have impurities. They're the ones that have the best quality. Eventually, would have had to get to the point where we start spending money. Because I was a student, let's not forget, back in university. And even though I wanted to impress Mrs. Okodwa, it's not like I had a ton of money. So eventually he would have showed me the highest grade. I wouldn't have money for the highest grade. We'll jump back and forth and would have found a healthy compromise. And it would have been a much better deal than what it was that I presented to Mrs. Okodwa. So those are the big three: prospecting, qualification, discovery. And that is why they are the foundation for any successful sales process. So if you are like that bead seller back in Ileife and you do not run qualification, these are the problems that you're getting into. So if your business is not succeeding, it's not because people in the village are mad at you. It's not because you are bad at social media. Maybe you are actually bad at social media. And it's not because your wife doesn't like you and so her prayers are not supporting your business. Even though that may be the case, that your wife doesn't like you and she's actively praying against your business. It's because you're not doing prospecting, you're not doing qualification, you are not doing discovery. So, where was I? Okay, yeah, so I was trying to explain what the big three are so that those of you who are listening to this podcast for the first time, you know the reason why we're talking all this jargon. But like I said, refer to the earlier podcast episode, that's 2 episodes back, and it will give you the larger background. So, now that we know what the big three are, and now that we know what buyer's remorse and buyer's regret are, the question now becomes, how are we going to deal with this situation? And that's very easy. There are 2 ways of dealing with this. Number 1, you can deal with, there are a couple of business policies that you can employ to make sure that you deal with the situation, because obviously the situation has happened. So if you're this guy who trades in these sorts of things and the young man happens to come back from to meet you to say, bros, how far? What you sold me was not correct goods, it was not fit for purpose. There are some things that you can do to deal with the situation. But I prefer to be much more proactive, and I think we should come up with sales frameworks to anticipate and to prevent this problem from occurring in the first place. So how do you deal with this thing? It's a 2-pronged approach. Number 1, business policies. Business policies, because Yawa has gassed already. The thing has happened. We can't avoid it. So we need policies to deal with it. Number 2, we need to work on our sales framework so that we can prevent this problem from occurring in the first place. So what we're going to do is this. Since we've already done 15 minutes so far, I'll just run through what the business policies are. And then in the future episode, we will look at how we can use this, our sales framework and our selling process to make sure that the problem doesn't happen again. So there are several policies that you can use to address buyer's remorse, buyer's regret. Number one, you can have a return or a refund policy. Okay, a few words on return and refund policies. The outlines need to be clear, the conditions need to be clear, under which customers can bring the products back. If you're going to have return policy, make sure that it's easily accessible. People should be able to see it on your website, on your Instagram. In fact, Instagram people are really good at this. Instagram people, after the bios, the first thing that you will see, products bought in good condition cannot be returned. You cannot return underwear, blah, blah, blah. Instagram traders, they're very good at it. They put it up there immediately because Instagram people don't like having to sell something now and then to return money back later. So make sure it's easily accessible where people can see. If it's in your store, let people be able to see the signs. Make the process as smooth as possible. Don't try and put any extra fees so it doesn't seem like it's a punishment. And then make sure that your staff is well trained and professional to handle these sorts of things if you are not there. So return and refund policies, because people are upset. Buyer's remorse, buyer's regret. Then there's also the exchange option. Warning, if you're going to do the exchange thing, make sure it is something of equal value or lesser value, because there's no point of somebody coming in buying something of 2,000 grand and then you do an exchange and the person walks out with something 4,000 grand. I mean, you're losing money on inventory. It's simple math. So it has to be equal value or lesser value. This can help the customer feel a whole lot, make the customer feel a lot better or more satisfied. Then there's customer support. You need to have responsive people on your Instagram handle, live chat for those of you who are tech savvy and who do website chats and things like that. Email, phone, just so that you attend to customers quickly and try and figure out what the problem is and know how you're going to solve it. Then you need to have feedback mechanisms in business. It's stuff that I talk about on the podcast every now and then. We need to encourage customers to provide feedback about their purchases. And the reason why this is important, because it helps us to identify the common issues, the problems, and the areas for improvement. And that's the reason why the post-sale debrief is important. So this thing is not academic, you guys. If that fellow in OAU, in Ife, had had the conversation with me, I had taken my phone number and had called me up in a couple of days to say, hey, young man, how far? How did it go? Was Momsi impressed? And I told him, Oga, Momsi was not impressed though. This is how it went down. In fact, I was embarrassed. We would have had a frank conversation and the guy would have gained some intel to now know that every single time a university boy comes over to buy something from him, it's possible that he's buying this thing because he wants to impress, a woman somewhere. So let's have the conversation so I know what the right recommendation to make is. And then plus, that might have made me feel less cheated if the fellow had called up later on. Now, some of you might say, all this feedback and debriefing, isn't that a lot of work? The answer is yes, it's a lot of work. But the thing is, we have to do it, especially in the early days of the business. By the time you do this debrief a couple of times, 20, maybe 30 times, you would have known all the possible things that could go wrong, all the possible scenarios, how to deal with things, and things of that nature. You're not going to have to do the debrief forever. You just have to do it faithfully in the early days of the business until you know what all the possible scenarios are. In this case, this guy sells traditional coral beads. There's a limit to how many F-ups, if you excuse my French, there's a limit to how many different kind of F-ups can happen when you're talking about beads. It's not like the guy is doing brain surgery where all kinds of complications can happen depending on the patient's ethnicity or diet or exercise or any other kind of complicating factors. So debrief, it's a lot of work. You're not going to have to do it forever. Do it a couple of times, 20, 30 times. Eventually, you'll be able to get all the intel that you need, all the things that can go wrong. It'll help to improve your business. Now, other things that we can do to deal with buyer's regret and buyer's remorse, there's loyalty programs where you reward loyal customers with discounts or special offers. What else? Exclusive access, things like that, just to tease them, just to seduce them back into doing business with you. So that's the point where you say, bros, I'm really sorry about how things turned out. Unfortunately, we don't do refunds, but you know what? Towards the so and so traditional festival, we're going to be doing discounts. I'll call you up when the discounts are up. you come by the store, and I'll make sure that you have access to this and this and this kind of beads. So that should greatly help when next you're going to Lagos and you want to impress your in-laws or you want to impress mom's friend, blah blah blah. So that's the kind of conversation that you guys will have. Then, in all of this, you have to be transparent about any limitations or restrictions that you have in return policy. Like I said, Instagram people, they do this very well. You see it in all caps, for instance. Products bought in good condition, blah, 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 cannot be returned, blah, 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 blah. Pay before, so, and so, in order to take advantage of this policy, blah, blah, blah. Just check your favorite Instagram purchases. That's for those of you who buy stuff from Instagram. If you don't, if you're a guy like me, pay attention to your wife. I'm sure your wife buys stuff from Instagram, beauty products, pajamas for the kids, cakes for friends' birthdays, things like that. When they're placing these orders, just look above their shoulders and have a look. And it's a good source of learning about how other people run their businesses. The same thing, you're a female, maybe you don't buy stuff from Instagram, but your husband does. When next he's ordering stuff, maybe he's buying, I don't know, watches from Instagram or something. Have a look over his shoulder. You can learn a lot about how people display their stuff. Anyway, just look over your spouse's shoulder, your boyfriend or your girlfriend's shoulder. You can learn a lot when they're buying stuff from Instagram, wherever it is that they buy from. Then, let me see. Okay, it's 20 minutes. Let me just cap it off here. So, these are the sorts of policies and practices that you can use to minimize buyer's remorse or buyer's regret. It helps you to build customers' trust because, like I said, in my own case, if this fellow had called me back to say, hey, young blood, what's up? How'd it go? Was she impressed? That kind of thing. It would have helped me. It would have helped build trust in the guy. Like, okay, you know what? Last, the guy wasn't trying to pull a wool over my eyes. It's just one of these things. These things, they happen. Then it would have improved overall customer satisfaction. So, before I sign off, the big question: are all these things or any of these policies suitable for your own business? Are they suitable for your sector, suitable for your industry, suitable for your culture, suitable for your country? I'm going to leave that to you and your business associates or your spouse or whoever it is that you're running the business with to decide. I can't say which ones are going to work best for you. There's some of you here who hear things like refund and they'll say refund, God forbid. If I give refunds, people will run me out of business. So I'll leave that for you to decide which is suitable. But there are no universal answers. Like I said, it depends. What kind of business are you involved in? What are the kind of customers that you have? What are the kind of customers that you deal with? What is the sector? What's the industry? What's the culture? What's the country? I mean, for beads, it's very easy to offer refunds and discounts and stuff like that. But if you're a medical doctor and you did hip replacement and you fixed the wrong hip replacement, it's not like you can say, come back, let's do surgery again, let me cut you up, and then we'll put in a new, whatever. So, beads, yeah, exchange, refunds, no problem. But medicine, you've done hip replacements, that's a different case altogether. So it's on a case-by-case basis. So that's up to you and your business associates to decide. That is not really a sales problem. This is more of a, should I say this is a business management problem or something? Is it business? Well, anyway, you guys that are much more knowledgeable in these sorts of things, you'll be able to decide, but it's not really a sales problem. So in the next episode, we're going to look at how to set up your selling framework or how to handle sales conversations so that you can avoid all these problems to begin with. Because it's better to make sure that the problem doesn't arise than for you to sit down and have to start worrying about exchange and the relative value of what it is that you're giving out to try and solve the problem. So that's all for today. If you love what you've been hearing on the podcast, then hit me up on 080-6466-2140. You can call me, SMS, you can WhatsApp, you can Telegram for business support on personal branding and career development, because all the things that we discuss over here, even though primarily we're talking about business context, they also apply to personal branding and career development, because you can use these skills to help you build a strong personal brand that will help you advance your career, professional communication skills, how you're navigating things at the office with your boss, with your colleagues, things of that nature. So personal branding, career development issues, hit me up. Sales principles can help you with that as well. You can also connect with me on LinkedIn or your social media of choice. My name is Tavishima Ayede. You can confirm the spelling of my name and my email address on the website where you're listening to this episode or the profile of the podcast app where you're currently listening to my voice. Then, for those of you who have dedicated savings projects and you want to see how I am helping a client helping a client get rather 1.4 million naira extra on an Nigerian savings account, then hit me up on 08064662140. The country code is +234. For those of you who are back in the UK or back in America or wherever and you've forgotten the country code because you've been out of the country for the last 10 or 20 years or whatever. So that's it pretty much. Thanks for your time and attention. I'll catch you guys at the next episode. We'll be trying to set up your selling frameworks to make sure that people don't come to your business like I did at the beach shop and then they go away with buyer's remorse or buyer's regret. So thanks for your time and attention. I'll catch you guys at the next episode.